They say money talks. But in this story, money didn't just talk. It screamed. A summer afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia. The air was thick with heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes you impatient. Inside the marble hall of First National Trust, a black man named Daniel Brooks sat nervously at the edge of his chair. He wore his best shirt. His tie was slightly wrinkled, but his shoes were polished like glass. Daniel wasn't there for charity. He wasn't there begging. He came with documents, proof, numbers, everything a bank should need. Because Daniel had a dream. A dream to open a real estate investment company that would give black families land ownership, something his own family had been denied for generations. But across from him sat Mr. Charles Harlan, a tall, gray-haired banker with piercing cold eyes. And in one chilling moment, Harlan leaned back in his leather chair, crossed his arms, and said words that would burn Daniel's memory forever. "We don't think someone like you can handle this kind of responsibility." The room froze. Someone like you? It wasn't about credit scores. It wasn't about risk. It was about race. Daniel felt his chest tighten. This was more than rejection. It was humiliation. But what Charles Harlan didn't know was that the man he had just insulted was about to become his boss. The story spread quietly at first. Neighbors in Daniel's community whispered about how the bank had turned him down. It wasn't the first time. Generations of black families had walked into those same doors, asking for farm loans, mortgages, small business support, and walked out empty-handed. Yet across town, white families received approval after approval. The streets of Atlanta in the late 1990s were buzzing with development. Glass towers rising, wealth shifting hands. But for many black entrepreneurs, doors stayed shut. Daniel's rejection should have been the end. But it was only the beginning. Because Daniel wasn't just any dreamer. He was a man carrying generations of struggle on his back. And that rejection lit a fire so fierce, it would eventually flip the entire story upside down. Daniel Brooks grew up the son of a janitor and a cafeteria worker. Every day before school, he scrubbed floors with his father at dawn. He learned two things early. No job was beneath him. Respect wasn't given, it had to be earned. In high school, Daniel was known as the kid with the notebook. Always writing. Always calculating. While other kids dreamed about sneakers and parties, Daniel drew sketches of houses, streets, entire neighborhoods. He wanted more than survival. He wanted legacy. But he was underestimated. Dismissed as too ambitious. When he got into college on a scholarship, even some of his professors hinted, "Real estate isn't really for people like you. It's about connections, old money, families who already have land." Daniel swallowed the insults, but never forgot them. Every odd job, every dollar saved, every night of exhaustion, he stacked it like bricks. Until one day, he walked into First National Trust with the confidence that comes from years of preparation. But Charles Harlan never looked past his skin. Weeks passed. Daniel almost gave up. Almost. But then, he stumbled on something strange. While reading through public records at the county office, he noticed an inconsistency. The bank that had denied him wasn't doing so well. Behind its marble walls and shiny advertisements, First National Trust was drowning in bad investments. Board members were desperate for new leadership. Rumors spread about a silent investor, someone buying up shares under a holding company. At first, Daniel didn't believe it. Until he looked closer. That investor was him. You see, while Daniel was being denied loans, he had quietly been saving, investing, building partnerships. Through shell companies and silent agreements, he had been acquiring stock. Piece by piece. Month by month. Until one day, without even realizing it, Daniel Brooks had become the majority shareholder of First National Trust. The day of the board meeting arrived. The bankers gathered in their mahogany-lined conference room, cigars and brandy waiting to toast their next chairman. Charles Harlan sat smugly at the head of the table, confident he would be chosen. But then, the door opened, and in walked Daniel Brooks. The same man Harlan had mocked. The same man he had called unfit. The room fell silent. Chairs shifted. Eyes widened. And then the lawyer read the papers aloud. Effective immediately, the controlling interest of First National Trust belongs to Mr. Daniel Brooks. Harlan's face turned pale. He stammered. This must be some mistake. But it wasn't. The man he had denied now owned the bank. The tension was unbearable. Board members whispered. Some smiled, others panicked. But Daniel didn't raise his voice. He simply walked to the head of the table, placed his worn-out folder, the same one Harlan had dismissed weeks earlier, on the polished wood, and said, "This is the business plan you rejected. You told me I wasn't capable, that I wasn't worthy. But from now on, men like you don't get to decide our worth." The room shook with silence. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about history. It was about dignity. Harlan sat frozen, forced to clap as Daniel Brooks was voted chairman of the board. The tables had turned. Justice had been served, but not in the way anyone expected. But here's the haunting truth. Power doesn't erase prejudice. Even as chairman, Daniel faced resistance. Secret sabotage. Whispers in corridors. And one shocking revelation. Someone inside the bank, someone close to him, was leaking information, plotting to force him out. And that betrayal would lead to one of the darkest chapters in his career. Viewers, listen closely. This story isn't just about banking. It's about every moment you were told you weren't enough. Every door slammed in your face. Every insult that tried to bury your spirit. Because sometimes, the very stone they reject becomes the cornerstone. Daniel Brooks proved that resilience can outlast racism. That dignity can outshine arrogance. And that truth, once revealed, cannot be silenced. So the next time someone tells you, "People like you can't do it," smile. Because they have no idea what you're building behind the scenes. This was the story of Daniel Brooks, the man denied a loan, who ended up owning the bank. But was justice really served? Or was this just the beginning of a bigger fight? Stay tuned, because the struggle is far from over. But deep inside those marble walls, not everyone wanted Daniel to win. Whispers turned into plots, and betrayal was closer than he could ever imagine. And that's where we leave it for now. If you felt this story, drop a like, share it with someone who needs the reminder. And don't forget to subscribe.